Richie, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Not
Good
too
to see you.
bad. Yeah, good to see you, dude. It's been a while. I don't know. I think the last time I bumped into you was in Some Neck Guitars.
Some Neck Guitars, yeah, that was about a year ago, I think. Was
Yeah,
it? Probably
yeah.
about that. Yeah,
Yeah, we were both a little bit younger looking.
Yeah, we were. Some Neck Guitars, it's a great spot as well. I love going in there.
Yeah.
It's an amazing place you can go in, and you bump into somebody like you. You're always bumping into people that you know around the city in that spot, and I love it. It's great.
It's cast like I had no intention of having advertising on the podcast.
Yeah.
But now we've inadvertently
There you go.
Advertised.
10 seconds into it.
So I guess we were texting about this, whatever. But
Yeah.
I guess the premise of this podcast that I'm going to be doing this year is to talk to people who've written songs that I quite enjoy.
Yeah.
And to get a bit of a further deep dive on the story behind the song.
Yeah, okay, like more of an understanding behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess the song we're here to talk about today is the song in your band, Cry Monster Cry,
Yeah.
and the tune is on Tangled Shores.
Okay, yeah, great.
So I'd love to start off actually by talking a bit about, because when I'm writing songs myself, I often feel there's a phase before you even put pen to paper where you're kind of harvesting all the influences around you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's you've hit the nail on the head there. Songwriting for me, I think it's if I start talking about like what songwriting means to me or kind of where I come from in that vein, that might give a bit of an idea about
Absolutely, man. Yeah.
what I try to do. So I mean, when I was growing up, there's something in me that's always wanted to be a songwriter. When I was a kid, I was fascinated with the idea of being able to tell a story behind the song. Me and my brother Jamie, my family constantly surrounded us with music when we were growing up. And I don't know when it happened or what song it was that made me, that fire ignited in me. But I love the idea of just being able to tell a story in a song. I don't like listening to music. Music for me isn't just about writing something that gets on the radio for the sake of it. Music for me it's more storytelling. That's the medium that I kind of look at it. We're storytellers, and that's what we try to do. In regard to what we write about, and I think it was our Uncle Jerry has been a massive influence on us growing up because he introduced us to lots of different types of music, but he introduced us to Bob Dylan, and I think that it was around the time that I discovered Bob Dylan's music that's when it really made sense to me.
Right.
That this was kind of what it was all supposed to be about, because I think that Dylan's a master of storytelling.
For sure, yeah.
And I don't think anybody comes near him. There's some people, like Leonard Cohen and
I think Tom Waits is in that.
Tom Waits gets in there as well, yeah. But for me, Bob is the man, And it's as I get older, and I've been doing this for a long time, and it amazes me that I'm still able to find songs of his that completely blow my mind, and just take me on a journey, and that's what he is. That's why he does the best.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been listening to a track for the last few months, and I'm still not sick of it. I'm still madly in love with it. It's Rosemary, and the Jack of Diamonds.
Oh, cool. What album's that off?
I think it's off Desire. I'm not sure. Right. Spotify these days, it's like you get a song and you just keep listening to it. You don't even it's a weird thing.
We were talking before about the how albums aren't
a
thing anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Whereas before you'd been like Blood on the Tracks, Desire.
Yeah, could be Blood on the Tracks actually. I think could be. Yeah. But yeah, it's amazing. Like, it's 7 minutes long, and it's a story. It's the way he integrates absolutely everything and brings it around, and that's why I love him. Anyway, I'm going a bit off the topic there. Yeah, so I mean, for me, that was kind of where I started off wanting to, learn how to do these things, and the older I got, like I started off writing, kind of, everybody starts in the same place, kind of writing like songs, like love songs, different things, and most of the shit that you write when you're younger is
it's just a mating call, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Like, oh, I'm so brokenhearted and this sort of thing, and then you go through all these different phases, and you get influenced by nearly everybody you listen to. Like, I remember listening to Thin Lizzy when I was younger and wanting to be like Philo, and like want to write these songs, going out and like being a badass in town.
Yeah.
I think you have to go through all those sort of phases, and then you get to a point in your life where you eventually stop writing music for other people, or you don't want to sound like other people. You want to sound like yourself. Like if you've done your time and learned your craft, I think that's when you really start to dig deep.
Well, and that's, I think, when you get the strongest reaction from an audience as well, when there's authenticity, you know?
Exactly, yeah. And yeah, that's the same as, like, you know, it's like any artist you ever go and see or listen to, you know. For me, that's what music is. Music is art.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, you have to kind of like lay your soul out there and leave it when you're out in front of people. Like, you have to, it's all about connecting with people.
For sure.
Because that's the most important thing for me in this world and in what we do, that we connect with people, and that people leave our shows enlightened or happy or feel
well,
get a
you
touch
provoke
with
a
something,
reaction, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, exactly.
A connection. I mean, and it's funny because obviously the internet is a fascinating medium, because people can be polarized by art, but now there's a visible mouthpiece for it, which is interesting when it comes to putting out tunes.
Yeah.
But I guess I want to roll back into the song Tangled Shore. So like, I understand that your foundation and how you approach songwriting is like storytelling is the foundation that you build upon.
Mm-hmm.
So what's a particular story? I'm quite interested from a lyrical point of view
So,
initially.
as you were talking about, I think there's a subconscious that happens when you're writing songs, and it's a funny one actually, because that song, out of all the songs that we've written or that I've written, that's the one that I actually remember. The rest of them, I don't remember writing. They're things that just they
happened.
They just happened, you know. And it's as if somebody's, you know, breathed life into these things, and then all of a sudden they're there. And you don't remember how they've happened. It's something that's there. Always
excellent point there. My friend's dad is a fantastic guitar player, but I remember when I was like 15, he was talking about songwriting.
Yeah.
And he said to me, it's like the best songs you write are the ones where there's no effort. It's basically that they already exist in the ether.
Exactly, and you're just kind of...
You pluck them down, you tune into it.
I remember I was watching a program, and Noel Gallagher was talking about his process of songwriting, and he was saying that he, you know, like the metaphor that he was using is he's a fisherman. He goes out every day, and he sits on the bank of this river, and he casts his rod in, casts the line in, and he's waiting there for a song to come down the river. And if he's lucky enough, he'll be able to hook it in and catch it. But if he's not, he knows that the whole thing about it is that he has to be out there every day doing it, because if he doesn't do it, Paul McCartney or somebody else is going further down the river catching that song.
Sometimes you catch salmon, sometimes you catch a piece of crap.
There you go, exactly, yeah. So I thought that was interesting. But with that song on Tangled Shores, I think that there's you're when you're trying to write a song, for me, I go into a phase or a mode where I'm subconsciously constantly thinking about something. If I feel like I want to write a song, which I'm writing a song at the moment, but I know that my brain is working in a completely different way than it would be if I'm not, because I'm constantly thinking about this song that I need to work on. So I'm looking for things. I'm listening to conversations differently, because I'm trying to pick up on something. If somebody says something, I'll go, that's a great idea. I really like that, and I'll put it in my phone, or if I have a scrapbook with me, I'll write it down as well. But like, my trousers are constantly full of like receipts and pieces of paper. My wife is just like, "What are you doing?" I come home, like doing the washing. It's just like tearing out pieces of receipts because I've written something down. But that's what I'm usually doing. I'm thinking about something or an idea, and subconsciously it's going into my head. So that song on Tangled Shores, I remember the day that I wrote it. I remember writing it at the time. It was a Saturday, and I just moved into an apartment, an old apartment I used to share with a friend in Rathmines, actually above the Swan Centre. And I was horribly hungover, and I was lying on the couch, and I think there was a football match on, and it was one of those things where I was lying on the couch, the guitar was beside me, picked up the guitar, and I just started strumming this chord progression. And 9 times out of 10, I'll know if I start playing something that I like, or if I feel like, I always feel that there's something there. And the second I started playing this, there was something in it that really got to me. It just kept bringing me back to it. And I just started messing around with that, the chord progression, and took the phone out and literally just started singing this melody that I'd had in my head for a couple of weeks, and the two of them fit. And just going back to that thing, like from the ether, it comes from somewhere. And,
freaky.
Yeah. And before I knew it, I had this thing, and I had rough ideas of lyrics that I mumbled into the phone, and that was the kind of start of On Tangled Shores. I knew what I wanted that song to be about as well. It's a song that's probably one of the closest songs to me, one of the most personal songs to me as well. My grandparents on my mother's side, who I was very close to growing up, are from Donegal, from an amazing beautiful spot called Fannet Head, which is it's getting more famous now, the Fannet Peninsula, and you get the whole Wild Atlantic Way, and get loads of tourists up there now. But when I was a kid, or when we were teenagers, you were going to the ends of the earth to get up there. And my grandparents, my grandfather was a fisherman, and all my uncles and the whole family are in the fishing industry up there. And my grandmother was the local school teacher, and On Tangled Shores is written about their relationship. My grandfather used to go out fishing with my uncles, and they would go out on the boat, and they could be out for 2 or 3 days at a time. And where our house is, our family house is, it's on the edge of the shore. There's a big shore that looks out to the sea, and the house is sitting up on top of a hill. And when my grandfather and my uncles would be out fishing, my grandmother used to take her rosary beads and used to go down to the shore and look out to sea at night, late at night, and she would walk the shoreline, and it's quite a long, it's like a mile or two, and she'd walk the shoreline saying the rosary, praying for the safe return of her family, her husband and her sons. And like I don't know where I remember that. I remember her doing it, and I remember years after that she passed, people talking about it, or people in our family talking about it, and it was something that always stuck with me. It was something that really struck a chord.
It's a powerful one. It's funny because I've obviously listened to the song previous to come to this, but then I listened to it with a little bit more intensity once I felt we should chat about it. And I was just conscious that listening to the opening chord progression, and I just got a bang of the Waterboys off it as well. And obviously they have a song about fisherman's blues as well.
That's right. Yeah.
And I guess. Gar Cleary, who we both know as well. He's got a song about a fisherman's kind of thing as well. So it's interesting because we're from an island, right?
Yeah.
Ostensibly. Mm-hmm. But I think, as Ireland's modernised, there's a loss of that connection.
I think so, yeah. I also think as well, like where the two of us grew up in Howth, like it's if we're surrounded by sea, it's something that, I think that men are just drawn to sea.
Yeah.
I remember like there's a John F. Kennedy quote, like our bodies are made of 70% water, and that's I can't remember his exact wording, but that we always want to go back to where we came from. That's why men are drawn to sea, to explore, to fish, and to sail. But I think there's something like really deep seated that's in our roots and our makeup that we're drawn to sea.
Well, it's fascinating. You think of people who live in the middle of America and have never seen the sea, like that. Can't even comprehend that. Obviously, just from growing up beside the sea all the time. Yeah, I know. Or even now, like we're in the middle of Dublin here, and I always feel like if I don't see the seaside, if I don't see water, there's something quite, I get it feels like the city comes in on it's coming out of me. And then the second I get out to the seaside or beside the water, I'm like, okay, it really calms me down. Yeah. So that song, it's cool. I've got the background from a lyrical point of view.
Yeah.
What would interest me now is in terms of because talking about Dylan, one of the things Dylan says in that book, I forget the name of his autobiography, the one he wrote himself, but he was talking about like every time Dylan goes on tours, he plays the same songs, but he puts different arrangements on them.
Yeah.
So they're constantly evolving, and people often get a bit frustrated if they're a fan of Dylan on record.
Yes.
And they go to the live show and they see it, and it's like, Subterranean Homesick Blues sounds completely different. It's a reggae version now.
Yeah.
So when it comes to putting an arrangement around a song, I mean, what's your approach? How did you guys go into the production of this song?
When we were recording, when we were
going into the recording, because you've got the sentiment, you've got the lyrics, and I guess what's your kind of method for making sure you're giving the truest representation of the song on record?
The way I like to work when we're in the studio, and Jamie will agree with this as well, I think, is like it all comes back to the original idea of the song. That if you're lucky enough to capture the emotion or the feel of what you're trying to portray in that song at the time, like the day that I was lying on the couch, I was like hungover to bits, dying, but there was something that whatever way I recorded it, whatever sound, whatever way the camera or the phone was at the time, that captured what I was trying to convey.
Right.
So I remember when we got into the studio, we recorded with a good friend of ours, Keith Lawless, out in Concealy. He's a fantastic producer and a great guy to work with. And he did the whole album with us. But that song, we had actually lifted that off the first EP that we released. We went in to do a 4-track EP with him. And the whole idea was that I wanted to recreate as close to that phone record as I had, because there's something very tender and something very vulnerable about that, the way I had done it that day. So the way we approached recording that song was to kind of put me, if I remember, we I went into the booth with the guitar and I just did it live, just did it. There's no click track, I don't think, to that song or anything like that. I just did it with myself and the track, and kind of tried to pay more attention to the inflections and the points that I really wanted to convey emotion.
Yeah.
Like it's quite a long song, it's like 4.5 minutes, maybe 5 minutes long, and I think it is anyway. And there's a point in it, like halfway towards the end, where it's kind of building up. And I remember that was the point where I wanted to kind of give light and shade, and I wanted to bring it to a point where this was kind of like a crescendo. This was like the top point to kind of convey this is the very, very important part of the song. It's like the part, it's like, keep going, just keep growing. Like that's, I wanted to kind of convey that, push that through. And that was the kind of way we just approach it. As I said, we're storytellers and we're songwriters, and that's our thing. And I want to be able to connect with people. And I feel that the way that we approach things, doing it that way, that's the best way to do it. That's the most honest way for us to do it. So that was the kind of way that we approached the recording of that song. But then when it comes to a live version now, as you were talking about Dylan, I mean, that song was recorded 6 years ago. So we've been doing that song, and that's a staple of our in our set list. If we're doing it with a full band, it works really great. But if we're doing it as a 2-piece, we do shows as a 2-piece as well. It's perfect as well. But we've changed up the way that we do it on a couple of occasions, a couple of times, because at this stage, I remember years ago going to see Bob Dylan. I was like, God, man, he's ruining these songs. They're unrecognizable. And now I go and see him, like, that's amazing, because you can't play the same songs all the time. It's not just for the audience; it's for the artist himself. Because I understand completely. If I was to play the same song every night the same way, I'd fucking lose my mind.
Yeah.
Because it takes the enjoyment out of that song. And people come to shows to see you enjoying yourself. I don't want to pay 15, 20 quid to go and see you, and for you to be miserable up there. And because people can tell.
Unless that's part of the act, man.
Unless it's part of the act. But I think that, like, punters know, and like people know when they come to see shows, you have to be into it, because if you're not into it, if you don't give it your all, you're faking it. That's bullshit. And we don't want to bullshit people. We want people to really, really understand what we're trying to convey.
Yeah.
Whatever it is at the time. So we've changed up a good bit. Like, it's great when we get to do it with the full band, because it's lovely, and there's moments in it that are really great. We changed the ending to a little bit, but I think I prefer playing that song at the moment. I prefer doing it as a 2-piece.
I think that tenderness you initially, I'm not sure if I've seen this song being played by the two of you. I think the last time I seen you was in a gig where you had a full band. But I think the tenderness you're telling me about, like, is probably amplified by the sparsity of it. That's exactly it. And we're able to, we're able to kind of take it up when we need to, and strip the whole thing back. There's a verse in it, the second verse or the third verse that comes in after the first chorus. When we're doing it as a 2-piece, it's just I stop playing the guitar and it's just vocals, and that sounds that it wouldn't work, but it's only for a couple of seconds. But really, really, it gives you the idea of, I'm trying to bring people onto that shore. I'm trying to bring people down to the water, and to really, feel that what it's like to be there. It's an interesting concept. I guess I think the final question I'd like to ask you in terms of the song, right? So you've written it obviously from a couch in Rathmines, you've gone into the studio, and you've toured around Ireland and England, wherever, playing it. But I wonder, in your recollection of all the times you've played this song, in what environment did you feel like that connection with the audience was the strongest?
We were over in Paris in October. We went and did a show in Paris in October, and it was incredible. Like, we've never played in France before, and we were invited over to play in the Culture Centre of Ireland in the Latin Quarter in Paris. And the venue itself is this, I think it's 18th century. It's a beautiful church in a courtyard, and the Church of St. Patrick. It's a chapel, and it's because there's a difference between a church and a chapel. Like, you know, like when you're in a chapel, you know it's a chapel. It's really, really, there's something very spiritual about this place when you walk in, and it's so beautiful. And the first night we played, it was a sold out audience, and it was just myself and Jamie.
Yeah.
Just in front of like 130, 140 people, and we played it in this chapel in the middle of Paris, and I felt, for me, it was, because that song reminds me of a journey. It's a journey of where I've come from and where Jamie's come from, where our family have come from. You know, I connect with that song very much. It really grounds me, and for me to be playing that song with my brother in front of all these people in France who'd never ever seen it, you know, we'd never played in France before.
Yeah.
It was very powerful, because I felt as if my family, there was something in that moment where my family and the people who'd gone before me, they were all with me. And
right.
yeah, that's like, I really love playing that song.
It sounds kind of transcendent in a sense.
Yeah, it kind of is. Like, it's quite sometimes it can be quite a spiritual thing to do, you know. Because, you know, I don't want to keep harping back to, like, you know, where you come from, your family and things like that, but like, it is important. It is your makeup is important, and where you come from. And I remember on that stage that night thinking about the people who would come from that piece of land on that shoreline, because that piece of land, like, we're able to trace our ancestors back to my mother's side on that piece of land for like 4 or 5 generations.
Right, man, yeah.
And that's very, very powerful. And I remember thinking, you know, God, like, if, you know, I'm here in front of all these people, it would be amazing if they could see this, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, I'd like to think that there's this world where that sort of thing can happen, or, you know, they're looking at, oh shit, man, that's pretty cool.
That's cool, man. So I'm gonna obviously put a link to the song on this podcast, but just before we wrap up, like, can you tell us a little bit about your plans for 2018 with the band and shows and releases and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's the start of 2018. Last year was a great year for us. We haven't put out it'll be 3 years now in March since we put the album out, and we spent most of 2015 touring, all of 2016 touring, and last year then, even though it's been nearly 2 years since we put the album out, people just keep wanting us to go and play music, which is fantastic.
It's always a nice thing.
Yeah, and it's really, really strange, because, like, we put the album out, and when we put the album out, it was a slow burner, because I thought, you know, God, we spent a year recording the album, and I thought, this is it, we're going to put this album out, and all these doors are going to open to us. And it didn't happen like that. And about 6 months later, the two of us were, you know, I'm not going to say we were dejected, but we thought, Jesus, you know, like, okay, well, just this is the way it is, and like, you have all these ideas that people are going to pat you on the back when you walk down the road.
Yeah, man.
And it's not that way. And then about 6 months later, it could have been longer than that. People just started playing it, and like Radio 1 picked it up, and then we started getting reviews in, and, you know, people started
in a kind of organic way.
In an organic way, in the way that, looking back in it, I was happy that it happened that way, because we're an organic band, and, you know, we're like an independent band with guys who just write music about our lives and where we come from, and there's no pressure in doing that, because we enjoy doing that now. You know, I suppose, like, this year coming, like, we've been writing for the last year, and we have a new album nearly finished in the writing process, and it's come away from where we've gone with the first album. It's a very personal album. We've been writing more about our lives and trials and tribulations, I suppose. And if you think of the first album as this kind of otherworldly thing that we imagined, the new material that we're writing is it's more close to the bone. It's more kind of sparse. This is what's going on. So I'm really excited about that. I still, even though, like, the songs themselves are, a lot of them could be a year old now at this stage, I still get really excited about playing them, you know?
Yeah.
So that's always a good sign. So the plan for 2018 is to get into the studio as soon as possible and to get them down. to get them tracked down, and hopefully it won't take too long, because the last year was so incredible for us, because we got to go and like play in some incredible places like Paris and Germany and the UK, and it feels like that what we do now, people kind of take us seriously, people respect what we do, you know, and we're lucky enough that we've had support from great people, you know, like we just did this show with the Coronas, and they're fantastic, and they're the nicest guys in the world, and the fact that they've asked us to come and open for them, you know, that's a big thing for us. The Riptide movement, you know, so many other bands, like, you know, we got to play incredible venues last year. We did like the Olympia, Vicar Street, you know, like all these venues that I always wanted to do. So, and I get to meet amazing people. So, I'm looking forward to what this year has to offer as well.
Well, I'm sure it'll be a pretty cool year, man.
I hope so. Yeah.
You just get into the studio, lay the stuff down, you know.
That's it.
Yeah. But sure, we'll wrap it there, dude.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Thanks a million.
No,
great.
Enjoyed your new house as well.
Yeah, it's good.